Apart from free and fair elections and democratic institutions, enjoyment of rights is essential in a democracy. For example, like life in Guantanamo Bay prisons, Saudi Arabia and Kosovo, we can understand the importance of freedom. Life in Guantanamo Bay. In Guantanamo Bay, about 600 secretly picked prisoners from all over the world was kept by the US forces as American government considered them as enemies of the US and linked them to 11 September 2001 attack in New York. Prisoners were not released even after they were officially declared not guilty. The US government refused to accept pleas of UN Secretary General to close down the prison. Guantanamo Bay prisons involved government of one country denying rights to citizens of another country. Life in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has a hereditary king and people cannot elect or change the rules. The king selects the legislature as well as the executive. He appoints the judges and can change any of their decisions. Citizens cannot form political parties or any political organizations. Media cannot report anything that the monarch does not like. There is no freedom of religion. Every citizen is required to be Muslim. Non-Muslim residents can follow their religion in private, but not in public. Women are subjected to many public restrictions. The testimony of one man is considered equal to that of two women. Life in Kosovo. Kosovo was a province of ethnic Albanians in Yugoslavia before it split. In the rest of the country, Serbs were in majority. When narrow-minded Serb nationalist Milosevic won the elections, he ordered the army to massacre the Albanians so that the Serbs could dominate the country. The ethnic cleansing was carried out by their own country, working under the direction of a leader who came to power through democratic elections. After intervention of other countries, this massacre stopped and Yugoslavia was split. Milosevic lost power and was tried by an international court of justice for crimes against humanity. The spirit behind rights for people need for a system where at least a basic security, dignity, and fair play is guaranteed to everyone, powerful or weak, rich or poor, majority or minority. Rights are reasonable claims of persons recognized by society and government and sanctioned by law. Live without fear, live happily, live with dignity, live without being subjected to degrading treatment, dignity. A right is possible when a claim made is equally possible for everyone. People should behave in such a way that others are not harmed or hurt. Any right comes with an obligation to respect other rights. When a claim is to be recognized by the society we live in, it becomes the basis of rights. With changes in society, the notion of rights changes. 200 years ago, women's right to vote would have sounded strange. Today, not granting them voting rights in Saudi Arabia appears strange. When law recognizes some claims, they become enforceable. When rights of a person is not respected by fellow citizens or the government, it is called violation or infringement of rights, and courts can be approached to protect their rights. Why do we need rights in a democracy? Rights give opportunity to the citizens to vote and elect government, express their opinion, form political parties, and take part in political activities. In India, rights are mentioned in the Constitution. Some rights, which are fundamental to our life, are called fundamental rights. Fundamental rights put the promise of equality, liberty, and justice in preamble of our Constitution into effect. Our Constitution provides for 6 fundamental rights. Fundamental rights: cultural and educational rights, right to freedom of religion, right to freedom, right constitutional remedies, right to equality, right against exploitation. Right to equality. The Constitution says that the laws apply in the same manner to all, regardless of a person's status. This is called the rule of law. Rule of law is the foundation of any democracy. No person is above the law. The government shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds of religion, caste, ethnicity, sex, or place of birth. Right to freedom. Freedom means absence of interference in our affairs by others, be it other individuals or the government. This does not mean that we can cause public nuisance or disorder. Government can impose certain reasonable restrictions on our freedoms in the larger interests of the society. Freedom to form associations and unions, freedom to reside in any part of the country, freedom of speech and expression, freedom to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade, or business. Right against exploitation. Constitution has made clear provisions to prevent exploitation of the weaker sections of the society. The Constitution prohibits traffic in human beings. The Constitution also prohibits forced labor or beggar in any form. The Constitution also prohibits child labor. No one can employ a child below the age of 14 to work in any factory or mine or in any other hazardous work, such as railways and ports. Right to freedom of religion. Every person has a right to profess, practice, and propagate the religion he or she believes in. Religious practices which treat women as inferior are banned. A secular state is one that does not confer any privilege or favor on any particular religion. There shall be no religious instruction in the government educational institutions. Cultural and educational rights. Constitution makers were particular in providing written guarantees of the rights of the minorities because language, culture, and religion of minorities may get neglected or undermined under the impact of the language, religion, and culture of the majority. Admission to any educational institution, maintained or aided by government, cannot deny to any citizen on the ground of religion or language. Any section of citizens with a distinct language or culture have a right to conserve it. All minorities have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. How can we secure the fundamental rights? The fundamental rights in the Constitution are important because they are enforceable. We have a right to seek constitutional remedies. This itself is a fundamental right. This right makes other rights effective. Dr. Ambedkar called the right to constitutional remedies the heart and soul of our Constitution. There can be no law or action that violates the fundamental rights. We can challenge laws that take away or limits any of the fundamental rights. The Supreme Court and High Courts have the power to issue directions, orders, or writs for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. They can also award compensation to the victims and punishment to the violators. Independent judiciary is powerful enough to protect rights of the citizens. In case of any violation of a fundamental right, the aggrieved person can go to a court for remedy. If the violation is of social or public interest, it is called public interest litigation, PIL. This is for protection of public interest against a particular law or action of the government. The court will take up the matter if the judges find it in public interest. National Human Rights Commission. National Human Rights Commission is an independent commission which intervenes on behalf of victims when government is not serious about pursuing cases or catching the culprits. It helps the victims in securing the human rights, constitutional rights, and rights mentioned in the UN international treaties. India has signed. The commission is appointed by the President and includes retired judges, officers, and eminent citizens. The NHRC makes independent and credible inquiry into any case of violation of human rights. It inquires into any case of abatement of such violation or negligence in controlling it by any government officer and takes other general steps to promote human rights in the country. The Commission present its findings and recommendations to the government or intervene in the court on behalf of the victims. During inquiry, like any court, it can summon witnesses, question any government official, demand any official paper, visit any prison for inspection, or send its own team for on-the-spot inquiry. Any citizen of India can write a letter to complain against the violation of human rights. There is no fee or any formal procedure to approach the NHRC. Like NHRC, there are state human rights commissions in 14 states. Address of NHRC: National Human Rights Commission, Faridkot House, Copernicus Marg, New Delhi 110001. Apart from fundamental rights granted by the Constitution, citizens have other rights offered by Constitution and law. Over the years, courts' judgments has expanded the scope of rights. Fundamental right to freedom of thought and expression, right to freedom of press, right to information, right to education, fundamental right to life, right to food. Some rights are not fundamental rights but are given to us by the Constitution. Right to property, right to vote. Sometimes human rights expands rights. Human rights are universal moral claims that may or may not have been recognized by law. With the expansion of democracy in the world, governments are under pressure to accept these claims. Some international agreements have also contributed to the expansion of rights. This international covenant agreements recognizes many rights that are not directly a part of the fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution. Human rights activists all over the world see this as a standard of human rights. Some rights recognized by international covenants. Right to adequate standard of living include adequate food, clothing and housing. Right to work, opportunity to everyone to earn livelihood by working. Right to safe and healthy working conditions, fair wages that can provide decent standard of living for the workers and their families. Right to education, free and compulsory primary education, equal access to higher education. Right to health, medical care during illness, special care for women during childbirth, and prevention of epidemics. Right to social security and insurance. With the expanding scope of rights, new rights are evolving. The Constitution of South Africa guarantees its citizens several kinds of new rights. Right to privacy so that citizens or their home cannot be searched, their phones cannot be tapped, their communication cannot be opened. Right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being. Right to have access to adequate housing. Right to have access to health care services, sufficient food and water. No one may be refused emergency medical treatment.